Okay, go ahead.
Okay. We went over some of these things. You guys that heard part of it, I mean, it's nothing new and exciting, but it is fun to talk about God being our Father and really kind of jumping in His lap and calling Him Daddy. And I guess it's all started with a point I talked to John about it. I'm kind of new to the Spirit and Truth. Just been smoking my head in all the teachings I can get a hold of, and it's just been a really interesting ride. I mean, coming from an organization that was pretty maybe just closed-minded and just kind of stoic in their view, and then to see the whole world explode in front of me again about all these things from God. It's like the first time I got born again and all the excitement of things to learn. So this area is just like that. I do love the teachings on Daddy and how God is our Father. And I think it's a significant thing, too. I was thinking, I said, well, I didn't see a whole lot of people maybe praying that way. And maybe you guys do. I haven't been around that long to see it, but I thought, well, maybe I was asking him. He said, well, then why don't you teach on it? And I go, okay, well. So anyway, that's why I'm doing. I'm just trying to learn more about it and the validity of it and how precious it is to our hearts to be able to call our Father Daddy. It's kind of what you see it too, like with a kid. You know, when a kid just gives his heart, soul, mind, and strength to what they're doing when they have no, fear around them, or they're not bashful, or they're just like enjoying what they're doing. You see them play on a playground. They're screaming, they're giving their all to what they're doing. And I think by calling God Daddy and us thinking we're the kid, that we can have that same kind of carefreeness with our Father to really enjoy the things He's given us. And that's what I see by working the scriptures on this. And a big thing what comes with that is that it builds a stronger relationship. We're inspired more than disciplined. I think that, well, I'll talk more about that later, but when you're inspired, things kind of flow better. And then, of course, the relationship is really that chewy caramel center of what God really desired for us, even from time of old. And that's able to be accomplished now in this new covenant relationship that we have. So that's kind of the goal. All right. I kind of started in the RV in Galatians 4:4. And it says, but when the fullness of time came, God sent His Son, coming from a woman, coming under the law, in order to redeem those who are under the law, so that we could receive adoption. Now, because you are sons, God sent the Spirit of His Son into our hearts, crying, Abba, Father. So that you are no longer a slave, but through God's act, a son, and since a son, then an heir. There's a lot going on in those verses. It portrays the old covenant, the law, and the new covenant. Now we are sons, and from our hearts we can cry, Abba, Father. And the first thing that I used to think was that Abba, Father was there as it sits, like it was like a daddy kind of thing, but the commentary in the REV explains this verse real well, and so it's really not that it's saying that. It is kind of cool, though, that it kind of, in some commentaries I read on this, it kind of portrays the Abba is, of course, the Hebrew, and Pater is Father, and so in that, they kind of spoke to both groups at the same time. Why it's really in there like this as a double isn't really known, but there's just a lot of, it's neat that it sits there like that. And the Abba part being like my Father. Even I saw one on the Jews that they didn't allow slaves or servants to say Abba. They couldn't say my Father. They could say the Pater part, but they couldn't say the Abba part. So it's just kind of interesting how they kind of revered it to them. But what's also neat in this verse is the old covenant and the new covenant, and that's that you are sons, and that we can call God our Father, and that we are now free from that law. We'll talk more about that later too. So another thing that on Father was in Romans 8:15, and therefore you did not receive a spirit of slavery to fall back into fear, but you received a spirit of adoption in connection with which we cry, Abba, Father. The Spirit, that's Jesus Christ himself, bears witness together with our spirit that we are children of God. Of course, we know on the day of Pentecost that God did something new. He gave us that spiritual birth. Children, for the first time, Christians are born into his family. This is all from the commentary on this. That is why God calls himself Father more than 70 times from Acts to Jude. It also explains why there is so much family terminology in the epistles to the Christian church. Individual Christians are God's children and sons, a term inclusive for women. And Christians are also brother of Jesus Christ, heirs of God, recipients of God's seed, partakers of God's divine nature, born, adopted into God's family, able to call God Abba, and so forth. It really is a big deal, especially in God's, especially to God, and so helpful to us to see this wonderful relationship and to participate in it. You know, free your heart up and really experience that compassion and be able to jump in Daddy's lap, so to speak. That wasn't in the RV commentary, but. So then I just said, okay, let's just define father a little bit, and then we'll define child, and then we'll kind of put the two together again. So, in father, as many of you know, you probably looked at some of the definitions for father before, and there's a wide variety of words when they say father, what it could mean. One of the originator, inventor is used, teacher. Many times they refer to a teacher as father. But I just want to focus on the parent part of that word being used as father. And also remember that, God embodies both all those attributes of a father and all the attributes of a mother. He chooses to be called father, but those attributes are within him. And you can see that in some of the prophets as well, and Paul, and guys were able to have both those attributes in their outreach to people. With the group last time, we kind of went around the room and kind of said, okay, what are some good attributes of a father and a mother and a good parent sort of thing. I won't take the time for that, but you can kind of think in your mind real quick, like, what's just some good attributes? And then we jumped into Psalm 103. And remember, God is the same yesterday and today and forever. So those Psalm 103 is just really neat to see these great qualities that God portrays of himself in there for us. Let me pop down to that. In Psalm 103. So you just say, take all the things a father or a mother could do for you, and then God just goes way beyond. So it should thrill your soul. So Psalm 103 starts with, praise Yahweh, my soul. All that is within me, praise his holy name. Praise Yahweh, my soul, and don't forget all his benefits. Who forgives all your sins, who heals all your diseases. What parent can do these kinds of things for you, right? Who redeems your life from destruction, who crowns you with loving kindness and tender mercies, who satisfies your desire for good things so that your youth is renewed like the eagle. I thought that was pretty interesting. It's almost like you could take all those, who forgives, who heals, who redeems and crowns, all those things he does so that your youth is renewed like the eagles, no matter how old you are. You just get renewed when you experience these benefits of God. Yahweh executes righteous acts and justice for all who are oppressed. He made known his ways to Moses, his deeds to the children of Israel. Yahweh is merciful and gracious, slow to anger, and abundant in loving kindness. He will not always accuse, neither will he stay angry forever. He has not dealt with us according to our sins, nor repaid us for our iniquities. For as high as the heavens are above the earth, so great is his loving kindness towards those who fear him. As far as the east is from the west, so far as he removed our transgressions from us. Like a father has compassion on his children, so Yahweh has compassion on those who fear him. For he knows how we are made. He remembers that we're dust. As for man, his days are like grass, as a flower of the field, so he flourishes. For the wind passes over it, and it's gone. This place is remembered no more, but Yahweh's loving kindness is from everlasting to everlasting. With those who fear him, his righteousness to his children's children, to those who keep his covenant, to those who remember to obey his precepts, Yahweh has established his throne in the heavens, his kingdom rules over all. So just a beautiful thing to remember, to come back to, even especially in there, that we're not to forget it. It's so easy to forget it when we're in the middle of a lot of trouble, that we can just, again, crawl up into daddy's lap and be like a child and experience and take all that in to heal us up and to get us going and get us back on our feet. In the other articles, I went ahead and reviewed a few, and I just brought out some of the highlights here. One of them, a neat one, was a father and his children on Spirit and Truth website. In this article, it says, how does a godly father deal with his children? Loving each one with the same degree of fervent love, he recognizes their differences in age, ability, and experience. First, he instructs each child as to how to do a certain thing, then he tests them by asking them to do it. If the child disobeys or does it wrong, he corrects them. When the child gets it right, the father rewards him appropriately. This process is known as discipline. And it's exactly how God our Father works with us. Disciple is closely related to the word discipline. They bring that out. However, it's a negative connotation discipline has, and perhaps because maybe fathers abuse that discipline in their home. But in Scripture, the Greek word translate discipline, we know, means a learner and one who follows both the teacher and the teaching. Today, the English word chastening leaves a bad taste in everybody's mouth. This is again from this article. But consider this fabulous definition from the 1841 Webster's Dictionary. Chastening is guidance by kind correction to prevent repetition of faults and reclaim the offender. Isn't that beautiful? That's really how these words were used. That is exactly how God, our wonderful Father, works with us, his children. Never is his chastening via sickness, affliction, tragedy. And then the article goes on to finish up with, in the essence, we were talking about the difference between punishment and discipline. Punishment focuses on past mistakes, while discipline focuses on correct future behavior. He's always got our interests in mind. Well, there are other great comments in here I saw, but our loving Father has our best interests, and as we call him Papa or whatever's dear to you, it's a big deal for us to call him that, and again, to develop that relationship, which should be our heart's desire, and a thing that we can really realize here in this new covenant relationship. One big thing I saw about this is when you do that and you develop that relationship, it actually changes your behavior. You have to be meek to be a child, and that puts you in a learning mode, and then you can change. Once you learn something, then you can change. Another aspect of this is a father as teacher. Not that we called a teacher father, but father as teacher is a really nice quality that God has, and we can be as a father as well. But he just loves to teach us. In Dan Gallagher's article, he said on faith lessons from everyday life, that we can learn, just all day long with our daddy. Every day there's something he's teaching us, and we can just be in that mode of and just really open up my eyes really big about, wow, yeah, I don't know, there's lessons here. God, what are you showing me now? I mean, what a great way to just walk with him all day long, knowing you're learning stuff. It keeps us from getting, high-minded or just focused on ourselves. We're focused on God and what he's teaching us, and then we can share that with others, and it's a great witness as well. He states, let's see here, John 6:45 is a neat verse, that God as a teacher, and our daddy as a teacher. In John 6:45, it says, "It is written in the prophets, and they will all be taught of God. Everyone who has heard from the Father and has learned comes to me." See, when people learn, they change. Learning, that's how they learned something. Else they don't know what, they just put it in their mind and they're not really doing anything with it. So I think that change behavior is a really neat thing. And what's neat about this verse is it also ties, of course, it comes from Isaiah 54:13, which is, "All your children will be taught of Yahweh, and great will be the peace of your children." And isn't that neat for us? Again, if we're in that learning attitude and that learning focus that we're being taught, and then great peace. We know stuff. We can change. We can be part of it. We're stronger. We're more confident, and just that peace is there then to tackle anything. Another neat one on this of God working in our hearts is this Jeremiah 31:31. Behold, the days come, says Yahweh, that I will make a new covenant. This new covenant is a big deal with the house of Israel and with the house of Judah, not according to the covenant that I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which my covenant they broke, although I was a husband to them, says Yahweh. In 33, but this is the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days, says Yahweh. I will put my law in their inward parts, and in their heart will I write it. And I will be their God, and they will be my people. And they will teach no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, Know Yahweh, for they will all know me, from their least to their greatest, says Yahweh, for I will forgive their iniquity, and their sins I will remember no more. Again, it points out that covenant relationship was new, and this new relationship with God that's available to us. And I kind of see it as and Dan points this out in that article about the carrot and the stick. He doesn't use the carrot and stick, but if you think about it, he goes, well, the old covenant, it was a checklist mentality. And he says you can kind of see people that are in that mentality. They go, if I do this and this and this and this, then I get this. And they go, and then if they're not getting this, they go, well, what am I missing on the list? I did this and I did this, I did this, and I'm not getting what I wanted. And that's a checklist mentality. That was an old covenant relationship. It was kind of like if you didn't do it right, then you got hit with a stick. The new covenant is a relationship with God, which is more like the carrot. It's like it's available to you. You can jump in, you can have it. You don't have to have it. He's not going to punish you if you don't have it, but boy, it's really good if you go after it. And that's, again, I think that childlike relationship we could have with our Father to just, enjoy that sweet relationship. It's just available to us, and we really can grow in it. All right. So then looking at child now, the first usage of father in the New Testament is in Matthew 5:16, which illuminates to me what it's like to be a child. So in Matthew 5:16, in that same way, let your light shine before people, so that they can see your good works and glorify your Father who is in heaven. Now, when you see a little kid and he does a project or paints a neat picture or something, what do they do with it? They just run to mommy, daddy, or run to their friends, and they show them what it is, and they're just so excited about it, and they're jumping up and down, and they let it shine. And doesn't that glorify you as a parent or someone who's taught this kid things, and they're excited to be and do these kinds of things? Like, wow, that's kind of cool. Well, it's really like our Father to us when he sees us so excited, enjoying his word and living it so freely, it kind of tickles his heart. It's neat to see. And of course, letting it shine before other people, that's the goal right there, letting people see these great things that God has done for us. In Proverbs 23:24, kind of neat, that listen to your father that sired you, and do not despise your mother when she is old. Buy the truth and do not sell it, and wisdom and instruction and understanding. So don't sell any of those things off. Keep them. The father of the righteous will have joy. Isn't that neat that that's sitting there, joy? I thought that, that's a God. You're tickling God's heart of a righteous child. And he who begets a wise child will be glad in him. Let your father and your mother be glad, and let them that gave birth to you rejoice. So there's good behavior that's out there for us to have. And obviously it does something for our Father when we do that. It's kind of like an action thing. In Matthew 18:2, so Jesus calls over and he called to him a little child and set him in the midst of them and said, truly I say unto you, unless you change and become as a little child, you will absolutely not enter into the kingdom of heaven. Therefore, whoever will humble himself as this little child, that one is the greatest in the kingdom of heaven. And whosoever receives such a little child in my name receives me. And there's a lot of verses that tie to this humility. God resists the proud. And it's just something that you don't want to have in your life, that pride. So being humble it will help you if you have this relationship with your father as a child. It will kind of keep you in the right mindset to not get into that pride. So if we're children and God's our Father, then look at these verses and put yourself in these verses. Let's look at Proverbs. It's all about raising, this relationship. And I thought it was pretty neat that we're to be a child, but not childish. So it's important you watch that. And so here's some ways that you could be childish. In Proverbs 20:11, even a child makes himself known by his actions, by whether his conduct is pure and upright. So, okay, you got to look at your actions. If I'm the child, I look at these and know that's my actions are what's out there. So what I said, of course, that's how they see the Father in you, right? In Proverbs 22:6, train up a child. So I want to be trained up in the way that I should go. And when I'm old, I will not depart from it. So we can continue to carry this with us. Like, yeah, I'm looking at the future. I don't want to depart from this. We want to keep it alive. So we got to get that training mindset all the time. And then 22:15, foolishness is bound up in the heart of a child. So I go, yeah, there's foolishness bound up in me, but the rod of correction will drive it far from me. And we can just turn to that word that's going to drive that foolishness out of our heart and put some pure word in there. Again, in those lessons from everyday life, you just go, it's bad circumstances you can learn from, you can be stronger in. You don't have to run away from them or be afraid to be put in them. Gosh, Mike, you're going off to China. You're going to be confronted with some really amazing circumstances, and you're just facing them head on. That's awesome. You're just going to be a little kid over there watching God showing you. I can't wait to hear those stories of just the miracles that are going to be happening with just by God working in your heart in those situations. It's just going to be neat to see. So I wanted to highlight this relationship thing of the new covenant. In that one article that's out there, it's called Sons of God, Led by the Spirit. So that's really what it is. That new relationship is being led by the Spirit. It's getting rid of the checklist mentality, which means there's no plan. There is no plan. It's just like God is changing any moment. Anytime you take old information or old revelation and try to put it in a new situation, you're probably going to fail. It's just like, okay, this is new, this is different, or even if it's the same thing, the things could be different. That Spirit's always working within us to be fresh and alive. And by being a child, that's what things are all the time. Brand new. Wow, new day. Wow, let's get up. Wow, oatmeal. I haven't seen this before. I can throw this today. I don't have to just put it in my mouth. And then the other neat thing about that relationship is remember that, the benefit of, again, a lot of this focus of Old Testament stuff was a focus on benefits, and you do the checklist. But a relationship, if you're focused on the benefits, I think you forget about the relationship. The relationship has to be first, else you're just going for the benefit and forgetting the relationship, which is what happened, when God said, I wanted your heart. I didn't want you just to do this checklist of things. So success is that relationship. Success isn't all the goodies that happen or all the goodies toys you get or all the good situation. It's like, wow, I believed God in that situation. Even though it was hell, I came out ahead. I overcame. I persevered. I kept going to God, and He showed me new things. I love your support, Donna. You're just a real blessing there to pouring her heart out there, just like, wow, that's great. That's encouraging. It's important to have. Okay, so then the thing here I pointed out to you, and that was about the change in behavior. It's important to see, and that's what you'll see. I learned a big thing about motivation versus inspiration. There was one guy who was working out. He worked out really good all the time, and I go, well, how do you motivate yourself to work out like that all the time? He goes, well, it's real easy. It's all inspired. And so that's the big difference when like motivation takes discipline to do something, but inspiration is easy. Once you're inspired, there's no obstacles because you're just inspired from within. And that's what you get with a relationship with God. As a little kid, you're inspired within to do these things. You don't let all the external things, and no one has to beat you over the head to do something that you're inspired to do. You just make it happen. And so we're always looking at that. We're being motivated by discipline. Well, it's nice, and maybe sometimes you have to do that to get going, but you want to be looking for the inspiration because, God's there. He's there, energizing you. Jesus Christ energizing that spirit within us, to tell us and talk to us and be comforted and learn cool things. So I'll close with this in 1 Peter 1:13. Therefore, prepare your minds for action and be clear-headed. Set your hope fully on the grace that is to be brought to you at the revelation of Jesus Christ. Could be next year. This prepare your minds for action in the RAV commentary is it's looking at things that are hindering you and figuring out how to deal with them so you can be effective for the Lord. And then in verse 14, as obedient children, do not be conformed to the desires of the time of your former ignorance, but as the one who called you is holy, be holy yourselves in all your manner of life, because it is written, be ye holy, for I am holy. And I think as a little kid and jumping up in your daddy's lap and letting him teach you stuff, I think you can't miss it by doing it that way. So thanks, God. Thanks, you guys, for your time. Bless your day.
Awesome.
Great teaching, Stephen. Really great.
My pleasure.
Some things never get old.
Yeah.
It's funny we're going to be living together in the millennial kingdom with the Israelites that, were judged as just people by the law. And we've got this different perspectives on Father, so we're going to be living, alongside them. But we're following the law or something during the millennial kingdom or some aspects of the law. So maybe we're changing or they're changing or, growing together or something. But it'll be interesting.
Should be. It'll be fun. I know that.
Just keep your headset on, I'll be able to find you.
I really love that picture where Jesus calls a little child over to him and says to his disciples, the greatest in the kingdom is like a little child, and you want to be great in my kingdom, you have to become like this little child. And what's so interesting about that is as you read through the Gospels and you focus in on the disciples and their behavior, they're constantly doing stuff like arguing with each other about who's going to be the greatest. And when John and James, I think it was John and James' mother, comes and asks Jesus to put them on his right and left hand in the kingdom, and then which is I guess bad enough in itself, but what's really funny about that record is the rest of the apostles are just incensed. They're just, who are you? That's my chair. And there's Jesus taking this little child and just saying, no, guys, this is what you need to be.
Yeah, cool.
Sometimes I forget. That God is our daddy.
Yeah.
I can see that argument, John. They're talking to each other saying, no, you can be my wingman. The other guy's saying, no, you can be my wingman.
What were you going to say, Sarah?
There's a song out, and I mentioned it a while ago, like a few months ago on here, and like maybe just kind of haphazardly in one of my teachings, and I still cannot find it. I think it's called The Greatest, and it's a lady who's just kind of singing about that moment when the argument breaks out between the disciples about who's the greatest. Oh. And of course, every time I Google it, all I get is like, wow, worship, greatest hits, greatest this, greatest that. And I'm like, no, that's the name of the song. So I can't find it because it's not real. It's kind of like an independent, little indie song. It's nothing big, but I'm still on the hunt.
Yeah, Dave Lutz was part of Joyful Noise, another ministry, and he had written on that one of the songs came to my mind when you were teaching this. He said, when you stumble and fall, you make a mistake, you're erroneous. He says, I just climb back into Daddy's arms and start all over again.
I have that one. That is good.
Yeah, Dave Lutz. He's no longer with us.
Oh.
Well, I mean, he died.
Yeah,
That's what he meant.
that's what I meant. He fell asleep.
When I met my husband, Michael, he was very kind of tapped into some issues I had. I wasn't tapped, but he was tapped. And he came home one afternoon with this beautiful picture of, it's not really what Jesus looks like, with a little 4-year-old girl sitting on the lap of a figure of Jesus. It was a picture that was printed. And he said, "You need this, honey, for inner healing." I thought he was nuts, because I really didn't have a good daddy. He was kind of an abuser, so I never had the vagueness of a father figure can really knock you off, because, we do need model examples. And it was no small matter for God to, try to get there with me. So my husband just bought me this picture. Well, I've got a little duplicate here. And if you can see it, this is me sitting on Jesus's lap. Not really, but it does the job.
Yeah.
And I had a prophet who knew nothing about this picture doing inner healing with me. It was for real, a genuine prophet. And he saw me at 4 years old sitting on the lap of Jesus Christ, for real, a vision. And it floored me. This guy knew nothing about this picture. And it freed me from this thing, that I was going to. And I have never felt so much joy ever since. And that was like, I'd say 12 years ago. And I have just had this greatest joy given to me, because the Lord does want us to enjoy that father-daughter relationship, son-to-father relationship. It's very meaningful.
Yeah, I agree.
Well, why don't we pray to our dad? I want to go ahead and stop the recording.